Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Namu Myoho Renge Kyo. Unbelievable. We're almost halfway through December 2022. Never thought I'd be here this long. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your study, your practice. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It's our Bodhisattva work to get this in the algorithm to function for us. Yeah. We have started the Diamond Sutra. And I know I have previous videos on the Diamond Sutra, but that was a long time ago. So I'm diving back into it to refresh ourselves in this teaching. It is part of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, yeah? Underneath that rubric, it's not like other sutras that seem to be for a specific collection, like the Lotus or the Lankavatara for that matter. Although the Lankavatara is kind of a mishmash from all over the place. But it seems to have one umbrella. I like that term, I guess. But the Perfection of Wisdom actually spans a great deal of time in a collection of sutras that all fall under the rubric of Perfection of Wisdom. We tend to associate Perfection of Wisdom with Nagarjuna, and he was probably the foremost scholar of investigating not only prior sutras or writings of the labeling of Perfection of Wisdom. He also wrote on those and his opinions on those, and then wrote extensively on the ideas of the Perfection of Wisdom, the prajna, that final step of bodhisattva, right? As they were investigating it in the turn of that century at that time. This like 500 years, 400 years after the passing of Shakyamuni Buddha. But in truth, the Perfection of Wisdom spans more than Nagarjuna's great contribution and solidifying of that branch of thought, Perfection of Wisdom. So there are like the Heart Sutras, a small portion extricated from the totality. Perfection of Wisdom is a very large compendium and even large documents. There's the I keep wanting to say Kanzi. I keep forgetting his name. One of the most recognized scholars of the Perfection of Wisdom has several books. The Perfection of Wisdom in, something like 80,000 lines, in 8,000 lines, at different lengths, and they're all Nagarjuna. So Nagarjuna definitely becomes kind of the patriarch, if you will, of Perfection of Wisdom. But he also was a collector of prior teachings that fit the sphere of thinking of Perfection of Wisdom. And the diamond is certainly one of those, yeah. Not that important, I suppose. Part 6. This having been said, the Venerable Subhuti asked the Buddha, now we're just calling him the Buddha, Bhagavan, will there be any beings in the future, in the final epoch, a little ominous, in the final period, in the final 500 years of the Dharma ending age, who give birth to a perception of the truth of the words of a sutra such as that spoken here? Okay, interesting question. So Shakyamuni's already defined the periods of his teaching and of his lifetime, and that in the future, in 500 years' time, there will be scholars or bodhisattva who will come about to restore and reinvigorate the teachings of the Dharma. And so with that, you can identify from the benefit of our perspective, so many, 3,000 years later, almost, Nagarjuna being one of those. We can identify maybe Vasubandhu in there, right? Not that they were contemporaries, but we start to identify with time. And this was what Shakyamuni was saying, is that every 500 years, there's quite a cumulative shift in human behavior, human society. Interesting that he was so clear on that. But, you know, although Shakyamuni existed almost 3,000 years ago, there was plenty of history before him. So it's not like people were unaware of lineage and history and parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, so on and so forth. And you could identify then, just like we can now, trends that have changed over lifetimes. So, yeah, obviously looking at himself, being a realized Buddha mind 24/7, was very clear on how his teachings affected the people he was teaching in his time, but how that would evolve over time, right? And so he defined 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different 500-year periods as being of the early days or the middle days, or what Subhuti is identifying as the final days. But they're not final in that everything ends. The universe ends at the end of the 500-year period. No, what he's identifying is that final period of the teaching defined by Shakyamuni as being a period of time when someone must appear, some bodhisattva must appear in that time to reform and reinvigorate the teachings of the Dharma and get everyone, who this teaching is for everyone, to start to take on the responsibility of propagation. That's us he's talking about. Unless the teachings are to fall into obscurity. And so the final age of the Dharma is about the time period when the teachings of the Dharma might be lost forever. And that's a scary proposition. And this is why there's a tendency in cultures since Buddha passed away that have endeavored to write down the oral teachings of Buddhism in separate languages, various languages, I should say, to somehow hold on to those teachings and not let them disappear, right? And much of everything that we read today in these sutras comes from that endeavor to capture clearly, accurately, the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha, lest they be lost forever. And as we read in the Lotus Sutra and other sutras, the exegesis from Shakyamuni read, write, copy, propagate the sutra. So it's part of the practice. It's one of the reasons that I used a lot of extant information that I found on the internet and from white papers in universities and other publicized, freely available translations, that I have put those into some book forms and offer them on the book site, right? lulu.com/Kwun or /spotlight/Kwun. Anyway, the Threefold Lotus Kwun bookstore has a lot of these documents, including my own additions and elucidations, whatever attempt I can make to share my insights into those things, is my effort to copy and disseminate, right? So, this is the Dharma ending age. It's not that the Dharma will end, it is that it is in threat. And you and I are doing a fabulous job of making that not so easy. We're propagating. We're making sure that this experience of Buddhahood can be experienced by anyone, anywhere, even if we don't know them, because the sum total is enlightenment. It's a better, more peaceful, more equitable, equanimous society, world society. And boy, anyone who watches the news even a little bit, in whatever form, knows how critical it is for us to do that. Because there are some among us, the ignorant among us, who are plunging headlong into destruction of life. Stop, right? So Subhuti is asking, well, in this final age, this age of what's the word I'm looking for? The loss of these teachings. Will there be someone who will perceive the truth of the words that we're speaking right now and have the value, understand the value of these teachings? And, are they just going to be lost? They won't understand. Anyway, so the Buddha said, Subhuti, do not ask, will there be any beings in the future, in the final epoch, in the final period, in the final 500 years of the Dharma ending age, who give birth to a perception of the truth of the words of a sutra such as that is spoken here? Okay. Surely, Subhuti, in the future, in the final epoch, in the final period, in the final 500 years of the Dharma ending age, there will be fearless bodhisattvas who are capable, virtuous, and wise, who give birth to a perception of the truth of the words of a sutra such as that's spoken here. So, Shakyamuni's confidence in you and I is unshakable. He knows that as much disarray that is going on in the world at this time period, which, by the way, is said by Shakyamuni to last over 10,000 years. So don't start getting your calculator on and looking for the end of days, right? That with all of this distraction and negativity that we're constantly mired in, there have to be people among us who go, wait a minute. It can't be this horrific. We're missing something. And with that very energy, we are highly motivated because we know there is a teaching, there is a method for us not to destroy ourselves. And it's pretty darn simple. Just change your mind. And how do we do that? Chanting Namo Myo Renge Kyo, study, speaking, influencing the world around us, not with our clever tongues, but just by our life condition. Indeed, Subhuti, such fearless bodhisattvas will have honored not just one Buddha, and they will have planted suspicious roots before not just one Buddha. Sure, you get that? That's exactly what I just said. Planting roots, it's our influence of our environment. By raising our condition, our life condition, opening our Buddha-ness, not just one Buddha, all of our Buddha-ness, we inculcate into our environment a sensation of deep appreciation and amazement for life, of life, in life, now. People feel it. You ever been at a gathering and somebody walks in the room and for whatever reason you have to pay attention to that person out of all the others who've walked in the room. That person grabs your attention. You don't know why. I'm not talking about sensation, some hardly clothed woman who just bouncing around in her, shimmery red negligee, whatever. I mean, that grabs your attention too. Come on, we're human. But I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. People who just seem to have an energy about them. Well, doesn't mean they're Buddhist, doesn't mean they're working on their enlightenment, but their energy is strong. So if your energy is strong and it's focused on enlightenment, how much of an influence are you? Can you be? Being mindful of that is what mindfulness is about. Because just like the accident, when we walk away from an accident and we suffer our injuries and our world gets really simple for a while, but then as we heal, we start to slip right back into our old habits. If we're mindful of that happening, we can resist the urge to just climb back into our comfortable karmic shell and focus instead on our enlightenment throughout the day. How different would we be with ourselves, let alone seen and experienced by our environment? So this is what Buddha is saying. Such fearless bodhisattvas, dedicated resolve, will have honored not just one Buddha, because we're Buddhaing ourselves. There's a new word. And they will have planted auspicious roots before not just one Buddha. In other words, we will inspire others toward their Buddha-ness, even if they don't know Buddhism at all. But they will be attracted, they will be influenced, and some will seek out our advice. And that's when we need to be prepared to share this kind of information. But what do we do first? Well, if you're interested, come over and chant with me. Try it. Yeah, but why does it? I'll answer all your questions, but it'll be meaningless unless you come and chant with me. If you won't chant with me, then I can't share these teachings because you won't get it. You won't understand it. Yeah. You don't have to be a supplicant to teach. You need to put up achievements. If the person isn't willing to try chanting with you for 5 minutes, you may just as well be blowing up balloons, because telling them about the profundity of Buddhism, it just gives them ammunition for their ignorance. I'm serious. Force people to, I'm going to say it that way, but I'm not telling you to break their arms. I'm saying people will be curious, and it's very gratifying when somebody comes up, man, there's something about you, tell me, what is it? I'm a Buddhist. Oh, you're one of those, you don't eat meat and you don't like war. No. Buddhism was born of a warrior class. Buddhism is about justness. Well, how do you know justness? Look, before we talk any more about Buddhism, you got to come over and chant with me. Even 5 minutes. Oh, chanting. Man, I've heard about that. It's like Amway, blah, 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 blah. Oh, well, it's not. But tell me when you're ready. I'll make time. And come over and chant for a few minutes, and then we'll talk about anything you want to talk about. Why do I have to chant first? Because your mind ain't right. Because until you chant, you won't open the channels of your experience in your mind to hear what I'm saying. You'll just convert everything I'm saying into ammunition for your ignorance. Sorry. You don't have to be that much in the face, but I want you to understand, you should take tremendous pride and value in your Buddhism, in your Buddha-ness. It's not easy to achieve, and if you've been practicing for any amount of time, you know I'm right. It's hard enough to keep our own minds on track. You think you're going to impress somebody who doesn't know anything about it by saying some magic words? No, they have to chant, not magic words. I've talked about that ad nauseum. We're not reciting words. Chanting is not reciting words. Chanting is an invocation of tremendous conceptual experience and knowledge. Myo isn't a word. Myo is a label for a ton of all the teachings, the Dharma itself. You can say the word sex all day long. Does that provide you an orgasm or any kind of experience of sex? No, sex is a label we put on a crap load of behavior. There's a goal, and that varies depending on, right, every person. So, yeah, sex isn't a magic word. It's just a label for a lot of other conceptual thoughts, feelings, experiences, yeah? So yeah, Myoho Renge Kyo ain't no magic. It's an invocation of all of the Dharmic lessons that Shakyamuni has shared with us. It's an invocation of all the potential for experiencing Buddhahood in whatever forms it needs to take for your specific karmic freight train. Make sense? Surely, Subhuti, such fearless bodhisattvas will have honored countless hundreds and thousands of Buddhas, and they will have planted auspicious roots before countless hundreds and thousands of Buddhas. This is how immense our influences are in our environment. In the words of a sutra such as that spoken here, they are sure to gain perfect clarity of mind. The Tathagata knows them, Subhuti, by means of his Buddha knowledge. Remember, the Tathagata isn't a person. It's a condition of witnessing, experiencing. And that conditioning of witnessing and experiencing occurs in each one of us through our own insights, aha moments, understanding, and invocation of that mind, Buddha-ness. And the Tathagata sees them, Subhuti, by means of his Buddha vision, basically describing the experience of Buddha-ness. The Tathagata is aware of them, Subhuti, for they all produce and receive a measureless, infinite body of merit of all life. It's infinite. It's endless. It's unexpirable. That experience doesn't happen for a moment and then fade. There's always more there. It's happening moment to moment. It's inexhaustible for the mind. For the body, well, that will cease just like everything else, and with it, that particular sentient mind. But sentient minds continue, don't they? And how so? Because, Subhuti, these fearless bodhisattvas do not create the perception of a self, an owner, a possessor. Because an owner, a possessor, gains and loses. There is no gain and loss. There is in samsara, but in the Tathagata, in your Buddha-ness, that's just seen as a rudiment of life, like breathing. Yeah, you don't think of breathing as gaining or losing, unless you lose your breath. But, right? The glory, the amazing process of life. You don't gain it or lose it. It's happening until you are no longer. But it's still happening. You're not the owner of life. You're just the owner of witnessing it, the Buddha eye, for as long as you keep that eye open, the Buddha mind. Nor do they create the perception of a being, a life, or a soul, like, yeah, well, when I'm gone, oh, then When you're gone, bye-bye. The only thing that exists of you after you're dead is people's memories of you. And that is theirs. Has nothing to do with you, really. It's just footprints. And they're dealing with those footprints in whatever way they deal with them. You have no power over that, no ownership of that. Okay? Nor, Subhuti, do these fearless bodhisattvas create a perception of a dharma, much less the perception of no dharma. Subhuti, they do not create a perception nor no perception. And that's a really important statement there. And here's how I reinterpret that for you to get, because that's in danger of being a little word salad, okay? That's a poetic, and it's a translation, however removed from the actual prakrit words of Shakyamuni. But I clearly understand the intent here. The idea that we don't create the perception of a dharma in the words themselves are making dharma a noun, a thing. Like I can, and you've heard me say this, I can't give you Buddha. I can't reach into my pocket of my brain and pull out Buddha-ness and say, here, Buddha-ness. Nor can you. We can't trade in Buddha-ness. There isn't a dharma. Why? Because dharma is not a thing. It's an experience. Can I share an experience with you? Absolutely. That's what we're doing right now. But that doesn't mean you experience what I've experienced. It doesn't even mean that you now know how to experience the experience. See, there's the thing. No, only you can experience awakening. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo, the universal model for you to engage your own Gohanzan, mind of Buddha-ness. It's almost like an extra term. Nichiren was giving us a samsaric visualization to picture this portal, this Gohanzan, into transmigrating from samsara to Buddha-ness. Back and forth. And here's a mandala to give you a conceptual picture of the teachings of the Dharma to make your samsaric mind, your 8 consciousnesses, to focus on that portal of Buddha-ness so that you can achieve, awaken, invoke your Buddha-ness immediately. Silence the monkeys, silence the desires, silence the wants and needs, and focus, what did Nichiren say? Single-mindedly attain Buddha. Be with Buddha. Open your Buddha-ness. That's all you should be thinking, for those who continue to ask, when you chant, when you do Gongyo. In fact, we say it in Gongyo, right? Every moment of every day, paraphrasing. I seek to find, to reach others to attain this Buddha-ness. And why not? Because, Subhuti, if these fearless bodhisattvas created the perception of a dharma, a noun, they would be attached to a self. Because the only way you can have a thing is to be the haver of the thing had. This is beautiful. attached to a self, a being, a life, and a soul. This is wrong. There's no such thing as a soul. There's no eternal being. Being is a moment-to-moment occurring evidence of karma. It's like the sparkler I keep talking about, the sparks. They're moments. Likewise, if they created the perception of no Dharma, they would be attached to a self, a being, a life, and a soul. Because if I tell you that you can have something, but right now you don't have it, it's the same equation, isn't it? Like you've heard me say many, many times. The negation of something implies that there is a thing to be negated. So they're just two sides of a coin. That attachment, that ownership, self-identity. I have, you don't. Right? It's simple. Because surely, Subhuti, fearless bodhisattvas do not cling to a dharma, much less to no dharma. Oh, I was enlightened, but now I'm not. No. This is the meaning behind the Tathagata's saying, quote, a dharma teaching is like a raft. If you should let go of dharmas, how much more so no dharmas? That's a little convoluted again. Language, translations. But I think you understand the message, right? It's pretty clear. Section 7. Where are we time-wise? We're doing good. We'll do one more section. Once again, the Buddha asked the Venerable Subhuti, what do you think, Subhuti? Did the Tathagata realize any such dharma as unexcelled perfect enlightenment? And does the Tathagata teach any such dharma? The Venerable Subhuti thereupon answered, Bhagavan, as I understand the meaning of what the Buddha just said, the Tathagata did not realize any such dharma as unexcelled perfect enlightenment. Confused? Nor does the Tathagata teach such a dharma. And why? Because this dharma realized and taught by the Tathagata is incomprehensible and inexpressible, and neither a dharma nor no dharma. Because sages arise from what is uncreated. Verbiage, words. What the hell does that mean? Well, in plain language, it means you can't teach an experience. As I said before, that's all that means. That those who are experienced become so because they experience, not because they learned it. Experience is experience. It's something momentary and accumulated in moments. Everything else is window dressing. Communicating about it. This is why the teachings of Shakyamuni are fingers pointing. Most of them pointing inward. Do you see what's going on? Do you see how your mind's working? Do you see how your body is taking over? Do you see how your mind has monkeys in it? Do you see how to focus your mind? None of that is enlightenment. The trajectory is that if you see enough and you get insights, oh, that's how my head is working. That's how my mind thinks. I don't need to think that way. So how do I get out of it? How do I get out of my own way? Because there is Buddha-ness. It's obvious there's Buddha-ness because I've had momentary experiences of it. I know what you're saying. I get it. Because you can't put words to it. It's an experience. And by the time we get to the Lotus Sutra, the pinnacle of Mahayana, what Shakyamuni gives us is, okay, this is how I did it. This is how you do it. Now, you know enough. I don't need to teach you all these ideas about how your brain and your mind and your heart and everything works. You are fully capable of realizing that yourself. I don't need to go on and on telling stories. Now I'm going to tell you, with some stories, how you need to set your mind to freedom, real freedom, freedom of being. And the method is simple. Invoke your Buddha-ness just directly. That's why Namu is so important. Because I am directing all my monkeys to shut up, and I'm dedicating single-mindedly my invocation of everything I've learned. All of the teachings of Shakyamuni. To realize, and that's the word he uses, to realize Buddha-ness, an experience of enlightenment. Pretty powerful stuff. And now we're going to go into section 8. Not the military section 8. The mind wanders so quickly. Anyway, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for learning, practicing. Thank you for your Buddhahood. Yeah? Namo Myo Renge Kyo. I will see you in the next one. In the meantime, take care of your health. Be kind. Kind to yourself, firstly. You can't be kind to others if you're beating yourself up. That's faux kindness, right? That's desperateness. So be kind to yourself first. Then your aura will push out into the world and life changes. All right. See you in the next one. Bye for now.